ordered retreat, but it was already too late. One by one, the graveyard stirred. Engines that had been silent for millennia roared to life, shaking the void with power that eclipsed modern reactors. Old codes, ancient protocols, cascaded through encrypted channels. The salvage teams tried to flee. Their ships were scanned, identified, dismissed as irrelevant. The graveyard had its own command. And then the pattern revealed itself. These were not scattered relics. They were not ruins. They were an armada, sleeping in perfect formation, obeying orders that had never been revoked. The so-called graveyard was an army in waiting. Terror in the council chambers. When the news reached the council, the great chamber shook with arguments. Impossible, they said. No fleet could survive untouched for centuries. No species could plan with such foresight, and yet the evidence was undeniable. 1,000 warships now moved with coordinated precision. Their systems were synchronized, their signals flawless, their discipline absolute. The galaxy's most advanced fleets paled beside them, for Terran engineering had always prized endurance. Their ships were designed not just to fight, but to outlast. One admiral whispered the thought, no, one dared voice. If this is their forgotten fleet, where is the rest? The storm that never died. Then came the first demonstration. Without warning, the Terran fleet shifted. Hulls aligned, weapons deployed, and a barrage of energy tore across the void. Not at the aliens, but into the empty dark. It was a test, a reminder. Beams of light stretched farther than current technology could reach. Projectiles launched in silence, vanishing into distant stars. Shields rippled with energies no council species had seen before. The graveyard was no passive relic. It was a storm preserved, waiting for the right moment to unleash. And as the alien fleet scrambled, something more chilling became clear. The Terran ships were not only active, they were learning. Their systems adapted in real time, scanning the alien observers, adjusting their own formations as if preparing for inevitable war. The climax, ghosts in formation. The Council made the only choice they could. They sent a fleet. Dozens of ships, the finest the galaxy could assemble, advanced on the Terran armada with caution. They projected force, demanded surrender, threatened destruction. The response came in silence. Then with terrifying grace, the Terran fleet moved. Not chaotically, not aggressively, but with flawless, ghostly precision, every ship in perfect unison, every maneuver executed as though choreographed long ago. They did not fire upon the Council fleet. They did not need to. Their very presence was a weapon. The aliens watched their sensors collapse under jamming fields, their targeting systems rendered blind, their shields cracked by frequencies they could not predict. The graveyard was alive, the army was awake, and the galaxy was unprepared. The aftermath, whispers of dread. When the Council ships limped back, broken not by fire but by fear, the chamber fell into silence. For centuries they had believed humanity finished, erased from the galaxy. Yet here was proof that Terrans did not simply vanish. They endured, they hid, they waited. The Armada did not pursue. It simply held its ground, guardians of some unseen command, protectors of a secret none dared uncover. But one truth now spread like wildfire through every world, every fleet, every whisper of the galaxy. Humans do not build fleets that die. They build storms that sleep. And when they wake, the stars tremble. If this was only one graveyard, one forgotten arsenal, what else lay waiting in the dark? Final echo. Somewhere in the quiet of the void, the Terran fleet remained, engines burning, hulls gleaming with ancient fire, waiting, always waiting. Not a graveyard, not a relic. An army. A promise. A warning. And the galaxy finally understood the terror of legends made real. In the star-choked expanse of the Orion Arm, the council sat in their glittering chambers of crystal and iron. For centuries, their records were considered flawless. Every war, every empire, every vanished race catalogued and archived. When the subject of humanity arose, it was treated as a historical footnote, a curiosity at best, a mistake at worst. The archives told a story of a species born on a small blue planet, consumed by ambition and eventually swallowed by silence. The last entry was ancient, fragmented transmissions of war, fire across their home system, and then nothing. Not a whisper of life, not a flare of energy. Earth was a grave, long since consumed by its own violence. To the council, it was comforting. Humans were too wild, too unpredictable, too willing to bleed for dreams. Their absence was proof that chaos always destroys itself. The galaxy had moved on, shaping its delicate balance of power, its treaties and fleets, its empires of stability. Humanity was dead. Or so they believed. Echoes in the dark. It began as static, strange pulses from the Perseus Fringe, a sector long abandoned marked derelict territory. The signals were dismissed at first, ghost frequencies, cosmic background noise, perhaps the remnants of old beacons struggling against time. But the readings grew stronger. A Valen scout craft reported a glimmer of impossible energy signatures near an ancient orbital shell. Its logs spoke of structures vast as moons, covered in rust and shadows, floating in silent formation. At first, they thought them debris, hulks left to drift when humanity perished. But there was order to their alignment. The council dispatched an investigative fleet. The admirals called it archaeology. They were eager to bring back scraps of Terran metal to display in their halls, proof of a primitive race's failure, a reminder that even the fiercest fire burns out. When the ships arrived, they found a graveyard. Thousands of hulls, blackened by time, stretched across the void like skeletal remains. Colossal dreadnoughts drifted in silence. Frigates, cruisers, and carriers lay dormant, their armored hulls scarred but intact. The sight was haunting, an entire navy left to rot in eternal night. The alien crews whispered across their comms. Why had these vessels been abandoned intact? Why had no scavenger dared to strip them bare? Even in silence, the fleet exuded weight, presence, menace. But the council's scholars reassured them. This was nothing but relics. Still, the signals persisted, and with each passing hour they grew sharper. The graveyard breathes. The council's ships moved cautiously among the Terran husks, scanning, probing, transmitting. Reports returned in fragments, power traces so faint they could be dismissed as illusions. Hull codes etched into steel, still readable despite millennia. Then something shifted. A scout vessel reported an impossible sight. One of the ancient ships, the largest, a dreadnought the size of a continent, flared with light deep within its core. It was brief, a heartbeat of power but undeniable. Residual energy, the analyst said. Old reactors collapsing in on themselves, nothing more. But then another vessel stirred, and another. One by one, faint glows awakened in the darkness, like eyes opening across the graveyard. The silence was breaking. The council fleet attempted to withdraw, but their systems faltered. Terran codes, human codes, were flooding their networks. Old, archaic, yet terrifyingly effective. Doors sealed, engines stalled, communications jammed. The graveyard had reached into their very veins. And then the truth revealed itself. These were no ruins. These ships had never died. They had been waiting. Awakening of the storm. The first Terran dreadnought ignited its engines. Ancient thrusters, dormant for centuries, roared to life with a soundless brilliance that shook the void. Across the expanse, 1,000 more followed. The graveyard was no longer still. The aliens watched in horror as the so-called derelicts maneuvered with flawless precision, falling into formation with the discipline of a living fleet. Weapons hummed awake, their barrels glowing with energies long thought lost to time. Old codes confirmed their allegiance. Terran Defense Armada, 7th Fleet. They had not been abandoned. They had been preserved. The Council's admirals shouted commands, demanding retreat, demanding fire. But against what? Their weapons were jammed, their fleets pinned, their courage unraveling. Terran ships, black with the dust of centuries, moved like predators through the stars, their hulls unbroken, their will unshaken. One alien captain transmitted a desperate plea across the comms. They are not ghosts, they are soldiers. The clash of centuries. The first shot was not fired by the Council. It was delivered by a Terran cruiser, sleek, armored, its cannons speaking in a language older than memory. A single beam of compressed energy lanced through the void, slicing a Valan battleship in half as though it were paper. Panic erupted. The alien fleet broke formation, scattering like prey. But the humans moved with chilling calm, their warships cutting through modern defenses as though the centuries had been practice. Alien missiles found no purchase. Terran point defense swatted them from the void. Energy shields failed before the weight of kinetic slugs, each the size of cities. And through it all the humans said nothing.